Simply put, the silence in this room was caused by our parents enduring their hunger while they waited for grandfather to arrive. First they had to endure waiting for the tea, now the hunger. The food. Again. However, the grandfather, from my memories, would always show up on time to meals like this. He was the kind of person who would never be so late that it kept everyone waiting, especially after the entire group had arrived. Oh, that's where Kraus is, isn't it? He's checking on Grandpa. Oh, things changed. Just with his deteriorating mental state. Well, yeah. When her mother scolded her, Jessica stuck her tongue out and looked away. No way around it. Might as well wait until our host arrives. When I glanced at the clock, I saw that it was almost 12:20. Let's go see what Grandpa's up to. Ushiromiya Kinzo. So it's Kinzo and... Okay. Right. It's... Okay. Right. Kinzo. The aged family head of the Ushiromiya family. This man could be seen in his study. The clock had already passed noon, but he didn't even attempt to rise from his seat. With his spectacles on, he built a growing pile of books with elaborate bindings, which he then read intently. You couldn't really say that he was having too much fun to stop. Rather, he filled the room with a sense of impatience, or perhaps a sense of impending danger, as though every second wasted was a tragedy. Here's another painting. They all kind of have like little epitaphs or whatever near them. In this sealed room, a dense dust danced through the air, which was thick with the stench of chemicals that exuded a mix of suspicious odors. Those odors were somehow sweet and heavy. If anyone with a normal nose came in here, the first thing they'd do would be to open a window and ventilate the room. The knocking against the study door had been going on for a while. A voice calling "Father" sometimes mingled in with the knocks. As Kinzo heaved a deep sigh, he snapped shut his old book in his hands and slammed it on the table. Then he yelled at Kraus, who was still knocking on the door. Jeez. Crucify the imbecile. Kraus called out to his father through the door. Kinzo always shut himself up in the study, hating it when nearly anyone, even his family, entered the room. For that reason, Kraus had no choice but to call him from the corridor like this. Molest me not! Jesus. This guy has just lost it. Broth of the apocalypse. What are you even saying, man? Is that what you're calling the liquor? Your demonic absinthe? The Green Fairy. Yeah, I don't know if there's something to his rants and ramblings, or if they're just incoherent babble from, like, someone who's going senile. Like, I know there's something, obviously, to the whole witch thing, but the rest of it just sounds so crazy. On the other side of the door, Kraus, Nanjo, and Genji kept waiting for the master of the house, who stubbornly refused to come out. Well, Genji's already here, I guess. Hello, Kraus. You don't look too upset by that. Kraus shrugged as though saying it's no use and smiled bitterly. From the beginning, he hadn't really expected his father to respond to his calls. However, since it was the duty of the eldest son, he had tried as a formality. Yeah, no. The apostles. Kinzo slammed an old, heavy book against the table over and over. That racket clearly expressed his great displeasure. Kinzo put his spectacles down and flew up from his chair. He spread his arms wide open as if to sing to a packed opera house, as if appealing to someone, and yelled, "What are you trying to do, man?" Yeah, I know, you want to see Beatrice, yeah. Why? The obsession is just completely taken over his mind. Just whatever is going on has driven him insane. Oh my god. This fucking voice actor. Jesus. He definitely seems like he's on death's door here. I mean, it does seem like it, yeah. Choking coughs continued to pour from the study. Kraus spun around. He looked at his watch, mumbling and acting as though he had wasted time doing something he knew would be in vain.
源氏さん、親父殿がお呼びだ。相手を頼む。かしこまりました。南條先生、食事に行きましょう。いつまでもここにいると、この甘い匂いで味覚までおかしくなってしまう。
Does Dr. Nanjo get to sit at the table with everyone? They didn't mention that he had a place setting, I don't think. Without waiting for Nanjo, Kraus went downstairs. Genji urged Nanjo to go and eat. Nanjo glanced between the study door and Kraus's back as the latter disappeared down the stairs, then let out a deep sigh.
すまんが、源氏さん、頼みます。はい、お任せください。お酒はなるべく与えないように。あれは常習性が強すぎる。源氏はまだか。何者が源氏を阻んでいるというのか。源氏はどこだ。源氏を呼べ。さあ。
I wonder why Genji's the only one he trusts. Not even Dr. Nanjo.
すみませんな。
Nanjo bowed slightly and descended the stairs. Genji watched him leave, then knocked on the study door.
親方様、源氏でございます。源氏か。何故私をこれほどに待たすのか。そこには誰もおるまいな。はい。
Yeah.
私だけでございます。
Ginzo returned to his seat in the study and pressed an old-fashioned switch on the table. After a small delay, the heavy sound of the door unlocking could be heard. Ginzo was convinced that his family wanted to make a mess of his study. Or perhaps someone had once opened the window for some fresh air, and ended up scattering things that, to him, were important research materials, leaving him in a terrible mood. Ginzo had outfitted his room with a formidable lock, preventing anyone from entering without his permission, and thereby sealing himself in a jail of his own making. Genji, whom he trusted the most, was relatively free to enter the room, but even that didn't always hold. If Ginzo was in a bad mood, even Genji wouldn't be able to enter. Anyone else would be limited to holding a conversation through the door, unable to even see Ginzo's face. And most of the time, what they got could hardly be called a conversation. Yeah, clearly. However, this didn't trouble the rest of the family much. After all, it just wasn't worth the effort to disturb this aging family head, who was impossible to please and always stayed shut away, immersed in his research. Taking advantage of his refusal to leave his room, they supported his isolation, putting his care entirely into the hands of the servants.
いつものやつを頼む。私は忙しい。はい。
Genji headed to a corner of the study. There, suspicious-looking bottles boasting venomous colors were on display. They were actually liquor, but considering the shady atmosphere of this room, one might easily suspect them of being some ghastly poison. Is there something to the alcohol and how they always make a note of its color and its look? Or is it literally just kind of like, you know, kind of an extra bit on to the fact that, you know, it is part of what's just like wasting him away and killing him right now? And so the color is almost like a visualization for what the alcohol has almost become for him. It looks like poison because it is poisoning him. The fact that he won't stop is lessening his lifespan. Inside the study, the mysterious collection of books gathered by Ginzo had grown into a mountain. They were bizarre, ancient, or banned books, all of them either forbidden, cursed, or sealed. But if you tried to call them old books, Kinzo would fly into a rage and say, "Call them grimoires." There were also many mysterious objects that presumably held some meaning with regards to black magic, like candles suspiciously melted and molded into strange shapes. The constellations drawn on a certain celestial globe contained quite a few shapes that would draw puzzled looks from anyone familiar with today's night sky. The carelessly strewn about books contained many illustrations, all of them a religious or mysterious nature, including some depicting demonically grotesque subjects or bizarre diagrams of various magic circles. And above all, a sweet, poisonous smell filled the room, profoundly assaulting the eyes and noses of those who entered for the first time. Eventually, it must surely make a person go numb and lose their grip on reality. Inside that study, Genji prepared Kinzo's usual drink with a well-trained hand. No one would even think of drinking such an ominous dark green liquid in that complex and ornate glass, unless someone first told them it was alcohol. He poured a little bit into the glass, then he placed a cube of sugar in a strangely shaped spoon, and poured water from a pitcher over it. Strangely, when the transparent water was poured, the dark green liquid turned a cloudy white. Huh? It was a strange optical illusion, as though the water had caused a chemical reaction and made the drink become even more unrecognizable as liquor. Then Genji added original flavors Kinzo loved, fine-tuning its taste. There was no recipe. Its success was measured only by Kinzo's mood swings when he drank it, and it had taken Genji many decades to learn how to do it right. Genji placed the glass on a tray and walked over to Kinzo. By this time, Kinzo was gazing out at the window. Kinzo had regained his composure and was now unrecognizable as the shouting, screaming, yelling man from a few moments ago. Looking at this man from behind as he tilted his glass and gazed down at the scenery beyond the window, he projected a sense of dignity and intelligence. To allow Kinzo to set his glass down any time, Genji motionlessly waited behind Kinzo, and to his left as though he were a living sideboard. Then, without averting his eyes from the window, Kinzo held out his glass. There was only a mouthful remaining. It was not a gesture intended to set it upon the tray, but a motion to hand the glass over to Genji. Ugh. Genji respectfully received the glass and inclined it a little to taste its contents. After that, he gulped it down. Kinzo smiled at his loyal subject, who refused to put aside rank even when asked to. However, he was not making fun of him. His smile was relaxed, as though chuckling at a close old friend's old, unshakable habit. Yeah. If Genji's been there half his life. Kinzo gave a faint smile, as if to say he didn't need any flattery. Oh, does the staff much more until it... I wonder, did the staff leave in the last several years where his mental state deteriorated? And if that's the case, does Battler remember there being much more staff around? Or was this something that happened much further back?
いないお言葉です。私の余命もそう長くはあるまい。息子たちは私の遺産がいつ転がり込んでくるかをうろうろ待つハゲタカばかりだ。
Genji has no words.
愚か者は金を湯水のように使い、1枚の金貨を売るのに2枚の金貨を捨てておる。それで金を稼げたなどと妄言を。エヴァは金の亡者だ。あやつは私を鶏か何かだと思っておる。死んだらガラにして出汁まで取る気だ。
God damn.
ルドルフの間抜けは女遊びばかり。ローザはどこの馬の骨ともわからん男の赤ん坊など産みおって。
Okay. There's gonna be something there about that. Who is Maria's father? What that's all about. I wouldn't even know where to begin, like, guessing as far as that goes, but...
ジェシカは無能で無学だ。上司には男としての器がない。バトラーは後宮家の栄誉を自ら捨ておった愚か者だ。マリアなど見るのも汚らわしい。
Obscene to the eye.
なぜだ、なぜに後宮の血はこうも無能なのか。
What does he mean by that? Maria's obscene to the eye.
私の築き上げた栄光を受け継ぐにふさわしい者はおら。ああ、分かっておるとも。これがベアトリーチェの
He thinks the entire way his family turned out is because the curse.
黄金の魔女め。
Golden Witch.
それが私への復讐のつもりか。憎みたくば憎むがよい。逃げたければ逃げるがよい。逃がさぬ、逃がさぬ、逃がさぬ、逃がさぬわ。お前は私のものだ。常に私の腕の中でなくてはならん。
Doesn't sound like...
私の生涯のすべて、我が鳥かごにて永遠に私だけにささやき続けるのだ。ベアトリーチェ、なぜに微笑み返してはくれる。
Jeez, when Kinzo goes into this, voice actor did a great job. I love it. I love it. God damn. So great. After howling, Kinzo choked once again. Genji set the tray and glass down and rubbed his master's back. Genji's facial expression did not change. It was always like this. When his seemingly deranged fit subsided, Kinzo regained his composure once again. It was like seeing two different people, a wild Kinzo and a composed Kinzo, living together inside one body.
私は決心した。このままぼやききった余生を怠慢に過ごすことなどもはや耐えられはせん。この身に最後にとするコインがあるならば、それを悪魔たちのルーレットに託してみたい。
Demon's Roulette.
魔法の力はいつもかけるリスクで決まる。日本古来の呪術である牛の国参りがそうであろう。
Power of magic is determined by the risk of the gamble.
7日間儀式を目撃されてはならないというリスクを支払うからこそ魔力が宿る。
I don't know how important this is. Like, if magic is real in this world, is he actually explaining real rules right now?
困難なリスクが生じれば生じるほどに魔力は強く生じるのだ。神話に登場する数々の奇跡は天文学的リスクに奇跡的な低確率を得て成就した驚愕すべき魔力の結晶なのだと言える。モーゼが海を割ったのは神の奇跡ではない。蹂躙の計りに乗せられ軍勢によって航海に追い詰められた絶体絶命のリスクが奇跡の魔力を生んだのだ。同じことが同じ規模で繰り返されようとも再び海が割れることはないだろう。なぜならモーゼは力ある者たちのルーレットの遊戯ない歌をかけたよりも多く存在する目の中に一つだけ刻まれた奇跡を見事引き寄せることができたから、その天文学的確率に勝利できる力、そう奇跡をつかみ取る運気はすなわち魔力なのだ。
Huh. Well, I'll try to keep this stuff in mind, but I still don't know if it's just the rantings of the insane versus something actually concrete in this universe.
強大な魔力を売るためには絶望的なリスクを背負わねばならぬ。魔力もたぬ者はそれを賭けでなく自暴自棄と呼ぼう。しかし真に魔力ある者はその奇跡をつかみ取り神秘を成就させるのだ。もしも私にその魔力があるならば私はその奇跡をつかみ取るだろう。生涯を費やした願いを実現できるだろう。
Wish he devoted his life towards. Kinzo looked up to the sky outside the window. He spread his arms as if appealing to someone up in the skies.
もし私にその奇跡を手にする資格があったら、おおベアトリーチェ、お前の愛くるしい笑顔をもう一度だけ見せてくれ。どれほどの月日を経ようともお前の面影が消えることはない。ただお前の美少が見たい、それだけだ。お前から授かったものをすべて返そう。あの日からの栄光をすべてお前に返そう。富も名誉も黄金もいらぬ。お前に授かったすべてを返そう。私はただお前の美少が見たいだけなのだ。
He is not pleased with the deal he made. Clearly. Jeez. His nonsensical yells became a scream, and then a wail. Kinzo slumped to the floor, tearing at it with both hands. Genji had no choice but to wordlessly watch over his master's lamentations.
Ya, Shokun. 当主様は具合が優れられないとのことだ。せっかくこうして1年ぶりの会合に集まってくれた諸君と昼食を共にできない。
Oh yes, he was so sad not to be here. He's so broken up about it. Of course. I'm sure everyone believes that too, definitely.
ゴーダ、ランチを始めてくれ。
かしこまりました。それでは本日の昼食を始めさせていただきます。
南條先生、そんなにお父様のお具合は悪いの？せめて顔くらい見せてくれてもいいわよね。
体調というよりは機嫌ですな。こればかりはつける薬がありませんので。
おいおい、機嫌ってまたかよ。そりゃないぜ。こちとら秋のクソ忙しい時期にスケジュール都合してご機嫌伺いに来てるんだ。それはよ。
よかったじゃないか、ルドルフ。それとも不機嫌な親父殿を私に代わり、お前が説得して連れてきてくれるのかね。
Definitely not. All good.
まさか。
Rudolph shrugged. Apparently, though Rudolph was willing to be indignant at how self-centered his father was, he wasn't particularly disappointed to be spared a face-to-face meeting.
夕食までにはその機嫌治りそうなの？クラウス兄さん。
そんなことは知らんよ。
It does not seem
親父
so.
殿に直接聞いてみるといい。もっとも声をかけない方が機嫌の治りは早いと思うのに。
源氏さんだけだよ。じい様の機嫌を直せるのは。情けないぜ。自分の親の機嫌を使用人に直させるんだからよ。
ジェシカ、余計なことは言わなく
Jessica
てい
just
い。
only gets scolded by her parents. That's it. She planned for her complaint to be heard only by her cousins, but it had reached even Krause's ears. Scolded, Jessica scowled and turned away, sulking.
機嫌がうんぬんってことは病状はそんな悪くないんじゃねえの？元気がないってんならともかく機嫌が悪いってのは少なくとも気はしっかりしてる証拠だぜ。
I mean,
おじい様は特に強い気力をお持ちだからね。でも体が必ずしもそれに伴えるとは限らないよ。去年からずっと余命3ヶ月って言われ続けてる。
so his time just keeps going on and
最初
on.
の診断が正しいならおじい様は気力だけで流られてるってことになる。気遣ってあげないといけないよ。
Lunch started with the family head's seat still empty. The man who should be sitting there had already grown old, and the brilliant glory which had rebuilt the Ushiromiya family in the span of a single lifetime was being forgotten. Even though they were beginning the meal with that seat still empty, no one felt it was that odd anymore. Yeah. My. All right. Just zoom past lunch. The Ushiromiya family conference was held once every year on the first weekend of October. If a normal family were to hold the so-called family conference, you'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. However, part of the family's great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children, and no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. So this meeting literally was a conference. Let's see how everyone's been faring in the business world. How much of the fortune was invested? What sort of business was conducted? How much profit was earned? As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid? Or possibly how much more would be borrowed for future business ventures? What lessons had they learned, and what could they learn from their mistakes? It seems that topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. So, Kinzo was saying that why am I having a brain fart? Kinzo was saying that George is not a man yet. Like, is he saying he hasn't, turned out the profits that would normally bring someone into adulthood? in the family sense, in the way that this family considers people adults. Has whatever business he's tried doing so far been unsuccessful, and kind of not been bringing in any profits. Maybe that's the reason why Kinzo is not a fan of George. He hasn't been showing any successes in the business world. Might be something. Although he's still very young, so I'm sure he hasn't been trying for all that long. It seems topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like lying on a bed of nails. Apparently it used to be a very serious family meeting, where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices. And some people even got slapped despite their age. Oh god. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful. So while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for us grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. The absence of the man who was the source of all this trouble, regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste much more delicious. The phrase, "while the demon is not around, everyone can relax," comes to mind. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. I mean, just like almost everyone else. The man sitting to my father's left is his older brother and Jessica's father, Uncle Kraus. This name sure is easy to reach, sure is. Kraus. Now that we've gotten used to this string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed. So Kraus doesn't actually seem that bad. It even starts to sound kind of cool. Just like with Aunt Natsuhi, I didn't have many memories of speaking with Uncle Kraus. He had never been one to chat to children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like Aunt Natsuhi. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. If what he said is true, Uncle Kraus used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling, and was despised by all the other siblings. He does give that kind of vibe, you know. He's got kind of like a dickhead vibe to him. The way, like, his smug smile, his large stature, his face, it's just all... Yeah, he's got that kind of feel to him, for sure. Though, despite that, those siblings all seem to be chatting happily together. Oh well. Even if their relationship was bad when they were children, sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, their relationships change. That's probably what this was. After all, they all had children about the same age. By sharing the same family environment, they probably profited by exchanging opinions. Maybe because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I would be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father on her left, purposefully faced right while firing off a rapid series of comments, not giving him any chance to get a word in. Moving on, let's look at the opposite end from Kraus and the others. In the very last seat of the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kairi-san. This was my first time meeting him. I had only just been introduced to him, but it seems he's grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. Alright, yeah, so Nanjo was the last person there. Okay. So now the chart's completely filled out. But who knows where other characters are going to go. If they do. Or maybe no chart. We'll see. I had only just been introduced to him, but it seemed... Oh, I already read this. I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Nijima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. He had known grandfather since the very beginning, when the mansion was first constructed on this island, and had built up a relationship over several decades. I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems he was actually grandfather's chess partner. We have seen that. I see. That kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather, but with his love of all things Western. Nanjo's probably the only person who could enter Rokkenjima despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kairi and the other woman who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of our short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ushiromiya family attend the family conference was a little odd. Made me think the grandfather's condition might have worsened so much it'd be a major topic of discussion at today's conference. Yeah. More like where the money's going, not necessarily about his worrying about his condition. Although I do remember Natsu getting pretty upset about that. But I think Nanjo's just needed around all the time because Kinzo's in such bad shape. After all, George said something like that just a second ago. Something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that grandfather didn't have long to live. It's nasty to think about. But consider how rich... it's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich grandfather is. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with a fair share of our parents' stomach acid, and it'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance they'll be talking about stuff like that at the family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with us kids. Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. Oh, we've seen him. The person who should be sitting in that incipient's chair is Ushiromiya Kinzo. It really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got this perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were written Kinzo. But he let us call him Goldsmith or something. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to understand what he's talking about. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temperature, what? I'm one of his grandchildren, not his son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself, but our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. That earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Kraus about who should go convince grandfather to come down seems pretty darn funny once you get to know their background. You know, I'll make a note of this later as well when I start episode 1, but it's interesting they make such a big deal about how everyone's names are all Western, starting after grandfather. And, you know, they at the same time made a point about how the witch Beatrice has, a Western name, didn't look Japanese at all with the blonde hair, and I don't know if there's a connection there somehow. You can't really tell grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event back before the Showa era, 1926 to 1989. Until the Meiji, 1868 to 1912, and the Taisho, 1912 to 1926 eras, the Ushiromiya family was great and prosperous. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to just double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, grandfather was a member of a branch family and had pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down the list of people who could inherit headship, but he had hardly any contact with the glamorous main family. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in the year Taisho 12, the mansion owned by the Ushiromiya family in Odawara was flattened. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ushiromiya family lost most of its wealth and family members in an instant. Jeez, it's a bad earthquake. So once they started trying to figure out who the successor to the Ushiromiya family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except Kinzo in his branch family. In Kinzo's later reminiscences, don't know why I couldn't pronounce that, he referred to this as good fortune, so great that it overturned fate. I mean, good fortune for you, but again, you're just looking at that in the most selfish way possible. With that, grandfather's boring everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ushiromiya family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he had been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this is when grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all of the family's remaining wealth, as long as everything from the hair on his head to his toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. Once he built up a gigantic war chest, he immediately invested in businesses. It was like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighboring bike, and then another one. Just like some crazy street performer. I'll bet everyone thought grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. However, after several miracles and turns of good luck, with coincidences piling up and every chance taken advantage of. Okay. So, is this the deal he made? He made a deal way back when he first inherited the family fortune. And that somehow, brought him along through life in a way that where he built up just massive amounts of wealth and power and good fortune in businesses. And was it a cheat? Is it a scam? Is it something to do with the witch? He was suddenly in control of powerful connections with the occupying forces. At that time, MacArthur and the GHQ were on the ultimate authority in Japan. Grandfather, in a twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. By this point, it's probably safe to say that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some serious deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning when he started investing his money. Too many coincidences piling up and too many great things happening. It's very questionable. The history books made it sound like all of Japan made a large profit off the emergency demands during the Korean War, but that isn't actually true. Only a very limited number of the super rich played the money game and made an easy profit. Most of the citizens remained poor. In other words, grandfather was a member of this extremely lucky group of winners. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all this happened during the year Showa 25 or so. 1950. I mean, so we're just getting done World War II and all that. I don't know the year the Korean War happened right after World War II then. Hold on. Korean War. Not brushed up on my Korean War history. It started in 1950. Okay. I gotcha. 3 years. Okay. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisho 13, 1924. So it took roughly they say it like it was happening so fast, but it did take decades for him to build it up. Grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ushiromiya family in only about 20 years to a level even higher than it had ever been before. With that, you'd think he'd revive the main family in Odawara. But for some reason, he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Izu archipelago. Buying an entire island is not something you can ordinarily do today. However, grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as a business property, then tossed that project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. After the war, there were prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of the GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of the day offered that land to him practically for free. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Anyway, it seems the under-the-table bribes did their work well. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune and his own island. Of course, it probably wasn't all luck. Yeah, he was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He's able to use this to his advantage and sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. Excuse me. This mansion, in fact. Grandfather, with his love of Western style, made this once uninhabited island a canvas upon which he could realize his dreams to his heart's content. He now had the Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and a beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. And he had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for any boy. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in the extremely stable iron and steel industry, and was able to live an easy and comfortable life just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. There's something going on here. This kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that's how they're portrayed after the fact. I think something was going on that literally let him do that. But grandfather denies all of that, repeatedly saying he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. Yeah. Unless you're right, blessed like by a witch with extraordinary luck or something. So maybe he's not necessarily lying. Anyway, even a lord like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up alone on an island where his dreams are made real. Everyone knows that he's had a Western obsession from the start, but none of our parents really know when his bizarre black magic hobby began. Did his love of black magic begin way back when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous stretch of good luck while reviving his family cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? At some point, grandfather began making the research of black magic his life's work. He filled his study up with suspicious books, chemicals, and magical items as he became increasingly bizarre. From what I've heard, those around him warmly watched over him, figuring that someone who had achieved success in life had a right to do it as he pleased, but there's no way that's true. They were probably just creeped out, thinking that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. Anyway, that agitated period was an age of big gambles, with both opportunities and risks. Let's say grandfather was born in this time period. He would have had no opportunities and would probably have advanced like a chess piece from mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming more than an average salaryman. If that happened, he probably have sat somewhere happily talking behind his boss's back. No, not in a fancy dining hall like this, or like at a table in some bar. Then again, I'll bet this family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that was the case. Yeah. Okay, that's enough about the old geezer. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch. Hasn't it been like an hour and a half? Are you guys still eating? I thought the time like really passed. Let me just check something. Okay.
しかも魚は近海で取れたやつだろ。スーパーの刺身とはわけが違ったぜ。おいおいよせよバトラー。育ちがバレちまうだろうが。
Everyone let out a big laugh. Damn it, you say that even though you love those cheap pubs.
僕も仕事の都合で珍しいところで食事をすることもあるけど、それらと比べてもこれはかなりのものだよ。ゴーダさんは多分その道じゃ少しは知られた人だったんじゃないかな。
よくは知らねえんだけどよ。老舗ホテルでのれん分けだか派閥の分裂だかややこしいことがあって、
Right.
そのトラブルで辞めざるを得なくなっちまったんだってさ。それでその時偶然おふくろが使用人の求人を出してたわけなんだよ。
Lucky timing. As Goda removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing a smile.
世の中というのは難しいものです。大勢の方の笑顔も嬉しいですが、お仕えすると決めた限られた方々にだけ喜んでいただくために繊細なお仕事ができるのもとても楽しいことでございます。これもすべて機会をくださった奥様のおかげです。
Yeah, but you have like this superiority complex against the other servants because of it. Goda-san respectfully bowed his head towards Anatsuhi.
応募のあった中でゴーダが一番腕が良かったからです。客観的判断に基づくもので市場はありませんので感謝には及びません。
Man, I feel really bad for Natsuhi and her headaches. Dang, why does Aunt Natsuhi always have to sound so indifferent? If only she spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. Shanin-chan and Kumasawa-san entered from the hallway with the serving cart.
失礼いたします。
それでは本日のデザートに移らせていただきます。
Goda-san and the others laid the beautifully adorned dessert out in front of us all. I guess it's true when they say you have to have another stomach for dessert. I thought I already filled up on delicious food, but as soon as I laid eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling more. I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. A white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce, and elegant rose petals adorned the dish. Normally, during a high-class meal like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to extol the virtues of this particular meal before eating. However, Maria was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited by this beautiful and delicious-looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed in front of her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but George responded by saying, "No, it's okay."
こっちの酸っぱい。こっちの酸っぱい。バトラ、こっちのは外れ。
You seem to be enjoying it, Maria exclaimed as she sampled the 2 colored sauces.
当たりと外れがあるのかよ。
Don't slurp in my ear, Battler, oh my god. Apparently, one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Whoa, one of the sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd have suspected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness would be red. Well, I decided to ask Shannon, who was putting away the serving cart behind us.
シャノンちゃん、この酸っぱいのは何のソースだい？
Oh. Battler wasn't here when the tea fiasco happened, and now he's making it happen all over again. Shannon-chan hesitated. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she really doesn't know. Still, even considering that, she seems pretty stressed. Well, I'm sure she doesn't want to... she just had this issue. Of course she seems stressed. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or did they use some ingredient that we'd be better off knowing about? Ugh. Aunt Natsuhi, I wonder if she even has a sprite that looks happy. Because I don't think she's made a smile yet. While Aunt Natsuhi made a gesture that seemed to indicate an oncoming headache, Kumasawa-san, who was setting the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle.
何の材料を使っていると思いますか？驚きますよ。
They'll shock you.
全然わかんねえぜ。というか、熊沢のばあさんがそういう笑い方すると不気味でならねえぜ。
Yeah, don't scare him, jeez.
何なんだよ、正体は。
We need to get out our silver spoons again?
内緒ですよ。お耳を拝借。
Kumasawa-san leaned across from the other side of the table. I leaned forward myself when she asked. Their interest caught George, Jessica, and of course Maria also put their ears closer.
実はお魚のサバの絞
From a
り汁ですよ。
And that's sour, or is this a joke? That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepted it, nodding sagely.
ほう、サバは酸っぱいよ。絞ったらこうなる。
No, I don't think that's true. Maria started clamoring that mackerels were sour. The adults were unable to contain their laughter.
違うわよ。酸っぱいのはしめ鯖でしょ。
Poor Maria. Ah, now I totally remember. Kumasawa-san said, or was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember her tricking me into all sorts of ways when I was young. The most lethal has got to be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They're kikurage, mushrooms. She told me they were penguin meat. And I went around school acting like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I?
熊沢のばあちゃん、相変わらずだな。
Oh,
マ
God.
リアが信じちゃうだろ。
冗談ですよ。今からゴーダさんがソースの正体を教えてくれますからね。
Goda looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason, but after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us.
それではデザートのご説明をさせていただきます。本日はご来賓の皆様が大層お気に入りでございましたバラの庭園にちなみまして、パンナコッタをローズガーデン散らしてございますバラの花びらは当家の庭園より先ほど採取してきたものでございます。ソースはストロベリーとローズヒップの2色の赤をご用意しました。ストロベリーの甘味とローズヒップの酸味を交互にお楽しみになってください。なお花びらは観賞用となっておりますので、避けてからお召し上がりくださいませ。それではどうぞお楽しみください。
Whoa. Man, I almost want to applaud before eating. Just like with medicine, reading the detailed description first seemed to make it work a whole lot better. As Goda-san elaborated on the details of this dessert, it started to feel even more appetizing. Seriously, should you call him subtle or just talented? The dessert was probably planned from the beginning, but taking in the hint, we all stopped in front of the rose garden earlier today. He displayed an incredible and timely awareness by just adding a few rose petals from that garden. His combination of sweet and sour was also exquisite. If it was just sweet, you'd get used to it and bored halfway through. But if you reach the sour sauce at the point, you'd get a really vivid taste. And then once you return to the sweet sauce, all the sourness in your mouth would be replaced with an enjoyable sweetness. I'm sure everyone else felt the same way. Every time Goda-san passed by one of our seats, someone praised the taste and his presentation.
いかがですか、奥様。
相変わらず見事です。お客様をおもてなしするに値します。
恐れ入ります。奥様、ご存知ですか？ローズヒップには頭痛に効く効果もあるそうですよ。奥様に特にお気に入りいただけるかと思い、特別にご用意させていただきました。
そう。
Jeez. Something's up with that.
ありがとう。
ほら言ったでしょ、夏日姉さん。ローズヒップは頭痛に効くって。
みたいね。聞くといいんだけど。
はあ、ゴーダさん、あんたには惚れるで。なあ、後であんたの待遇を聞かせてや。
I guess Nanjo doesn't have any solutions for Natsuhi's headaches. I'm sure he's taken a look at her before, but
無理ならあんたの欲しい年収指立ててくれるだけでもいいんやで。あんたの腕がこの島だけで独占されとるのは
Hideyoshi trying to steal fucking Goda.
その腕わしの会社で振るってお客の皆さんも喜ばせてみる気はないかのう。
秀吉さん、うちのゴーダを引き抜かれるのですか？
Yes, he is.
俺は困った。ゴーダの待遇をもっと良くしないと引き抜かれてしまいそうだ。
そうした方がいいわね。じゃないと引き抜かれて3食が熊沢さんのサバ料理にされちゃうわよ。
Ooh.
これは手厳しすっかり根に持たれてしまいまして。
She used to be the cook. Everyone let out a huge laugh. According to Jessica, Kumasawa-san's mackerel jokes were running a gag that our parents had long since gotten used to. Kumasawa-san often claimed that mackerels had precious nutritional value, which could slow aging, making people smarter and more. Supposedly, while it couldn't stop the outward signs of aging, it helped prevent aging on the inside. Since she was still spirited enough to tell these kinds of jokes at her age, there might be something to that theory.
それでは失礼いたします。夕食にはふるってたくさんのサバ料理をお召し上がりいただきますので、どうぞご期待くださいませね。
Oh boy.
期待してるよ。今晩はしめ鯖でキュッとしゃれ込みたいぜ。
All that sour
それ
mackerel.
は素敵ね。ついでに日本酒の美味しいのも出てこないかしら。
ございますよ。六軒島名物のサバ焼酎なるものがございまして。
Shochu. I don't know what shochu is. Kumasawa-san, together with Shanin-chan, bowed and pushed the serving cart away. It was pretty funny to watch Goda-san, who looked like his show had totally been stolen, explain in a serious voice that we would be having calf steak for dinner. Well,
熊沢さん、さっきはありがとうございました。
as she pushed the serving cart, Shannon bowed her head very deeply.
なんもお礼を言われることなんてありません。
Kumasawa may have played dumb, but she had obviously understood and saved Shannon in the nick of time. Back when Battler had asked about the dessert, Shannon had unfortunately hesitated. There may have been several ways to dodge the question, but all of them would require some quick wits. Shannon, who hesitated when hard-pressed for a response, was always suffering because of this small weakness. If only Shannon had a little of the craftiness needed to cleverly shake off a mistake, like Goda, her life would have been a bit easier. The fact that she could perform other tasks flawlessly made this weakness even more unfortunate. However, there were some who understood Shannon's honest nature, her inability to gloss over a mistake and draw attention away from it. That was why Kumasawa-san had smoothly come to her rescue.
さっき源氏さんが午後のシフトに変更があるとおっしゃってましたよ。確かシャノンさんは夕方までお休みがもらえたと思い。羨ましい。
すみません。シフト
そう、
Yeah.
そう。オーブンでこれからちょっとサバを焼こうと思ってるんですよ。できたらお休みの前にちょっと手伝ってくれると嬉しいですね。
喜んでお手伝いさせていただきます。
I'm gonna look up some voice actors in between before I start later. To Shannon, Kumasawa-san was Like a mother. I just say son because I'm so used to being in Battler's point of view. It's like a mother among the servants. Okay. I'm not stopping, but I believe the end of this scene is as far as I've gotten. Where Ava flips out at Aunt Natsuhi. Pretty sure it was in this room. There might be an interlude in the middle of the scene when we go see Battler's point of view again. I don't remember. But yeah, we are closing in on where I had previously played up to, and where the blind content will begin. The dining hall needed to be cleaned up, so we were chased out. Instead, tea was being served in the parlor. Apparently, they'd prepared the black tea that Aunt Rosa had bought for Aunt Natsuhi. Maria said she also wanted to have some black tea, but my old bastard said... Excuse me. The old bastard said she couldn't, told his children to go play outside.
バトラ君、みんなで表に散歩に行かないかい？
バラでも見に行ったらええ。でも天気には十分注意するんやで。空はまだ明るいが、天気予報は降る降ると繰り返しちょる。
Storm's brewing.
あら素敵じゃない。砂浜で遊ぶなんて普段はなかなかできないものね。
そっか。よし、じゃあみんなで浜辺でも行こうぜ。行こう行こう。マリア、服を濡らさないようにするのよ。靴もよ。濡らさない。
素直で可愛い。バトラ君、マリアちゃんの面倒ちゃんと見てあげてね。
おうよ、任せろ。
おう、お前も切り絵に頼まれると素直で可愛いじゃん。たまには俺の言うことも素直に聞いてみる。
Oh god.
まっぴらごめんだぜ。行こうぜみんな。ほらほら。
Children flew out of the parlor. They were replaced by Genji, who pushed a serving cart in and prepared to serve the tea. The parlor was filled with a sublime aroma which delighted everyone while they waited to sate their thirst.
ルドルフのところは家族仲がいいじゃないか。良いことだ。
よせよ。兄貴のところには負けるぜ。
そうよ。これも夏日姉さんの教育の賜物ね。
どうも。
Natsuhi answered coldly. Yeah, I just feel like everything Ava says to Natsuhi is just in sarcasm or with an underlying amount of malice or aggression. It's just... Look at that smug look on her face. She's just like completely insincere. The conversation broke off then and the parlor fell silent. Maybe Hideyoshi couldn't bear the silence because he broke it himself with an exaggerated gesture.
しかし成長は早いもんやで。いつまでも子供だと思っとったが、図体はみるみるでかくなり、いつの間にか大人の仲間入りや。バトラ君なんか見違えたで。
体は大きくなりましたけど、まだ子供です。うちの主人も未だに子供ですけれど。
Ooh. Poor Rudolph.
子供と大人の境ってどこ？私未だに大人になったって自覚が持てない。
Really? Being a mother hasn't kind of made that click for you, really? Interesting.
情けないじゃないか。
All right,
一
Kraus.
児の母の言うことではない。
Okay, yeah, well. That's exactly, yeah.
そうね。私たちももう子供じゃない。大人同士よ。だから感情的にならず、知的な会話をしたいわね。
Ooh. I love the change in music right there. This, like, sudden, like, tense music and the constant noise is like clock ticking. Like, there's a sense of urgency. It's really good. When Ava smiled with sharp sarcasm, everyone seemed to get more tense. It felt as though that pleasant tea aroma had been tossed out the window.
知的な会話なら昔からいつも心がけているじゃないか。お前の嫌味は時に的を外している。昔から変わらない。
昔からいつもですって？あらあら、その言葉をきれいに放送して何十年か前のこの部屋に届けてあげたいわね。
I don't remember the scene too much other than they talk about the fortune, but it almost feels right now like the facades are all about to drop. Like all the pleasantries are done, the kids are gone. Let's be real now.
ねえ、ローザ。
Rosa gave a vague smile. She knew that, whether she agreed or disagreed, she'd earned the displeasure of one of her siblings. It was a bit of worldly wisdom that had been essential for someone growing up as the youngest sibling.
よせよ姉貴。ガキどもがいない間に本題に入ろうじゃねえか。それこそ知的な話よ。
As Rudolph glanced over the faces of all present, some let out a slight sigh and let the small look of resignation cross their face. They were approaching their unavoidable, true agenda.
去年の時点で余命3ヶ月だったんだ。ってことは、すでにマイナス9ヶ月ってことじゃねえか。
Just a mere negative 9 months.
慌ててすっ飛んでくるかもわからねえ状態ってことだぜ。
当主様は今でも健在でおられます。
Yeah, Natsuhi does not like this
この
conversation,
ような
I
不穏
remember.
当な話を日も明るいうちからなさろうとするなど、ルドルフさんの正気を疑わざるを得ません。
だがな、夏日さん。こういうしょっぱい話はいざことがあってからじゃ遅いんや。今が元気だからこそ余裕あるうちにしとくもんなんやで。これも財産のエチケットみたいなもんや。
諸君の関心は親父殿のようじゃないか。あなたから説明してくださいませんか。
Oh, was Nanjo in the
彼
room?
らもそれをお望みらしい。
Okay. Nanjo, who had been standing by the window and staring out the rose garden, let out a single cough when he realized that he was being called.
南條先生、お父様の具合はどんな感じなんですか？
まずはじめに
言われずともわかるわ。余命というのはあくまでも見込みであって約束ではないと。
さようです。ですから皆さんからたびたびお尋ねを受けますが、いつ亡くなるのかということは決して人の命は体と心に支えられております。
体はともかくお心はまだしっかりしていて意気健康でいらっしゃれるということですね。
キリエ、すまんがしばらく黙っててくれ。
Mm.
ごめんなさい。
さようです。金蔵さんの体はすっかり病魔に蝕まれております。ましてや あのような強いお酒をたしなまれ続けてはとてもとても。
崖っぷちなのも酒のせい。流らえてるのも酒のせいか。酒豪の親父らしいね。
それで先生、もちろん見込みで結構なんですけども、お父様、来年の今日まではさすがにどうかしら。
当主様に対してあまりに無礼な質問です。
Oof. Natsuki jumped on Eva, not even bothering to hide her astonished expression. Eva stared back daringly, but Hideyoshi realized what was going on and tried to smooth things over with a forced smile.
ああ、夏井さん、カニーナ。エヴァ、お前も少し言葉を選ばんか。
ごめんなさい。お父様の容体が気になって仕方なかったもので。
Yeah, sure.
そうですか。それは気づきませんでした。
南條先生、聞かせてやってください。父親の寿命を気遣う娘の麗しい家族愛じゃないですか。
Why does oh my god, everyone's just so many people in the just acting, just like quarter of them are actually sincere with their words. Cross laughed sarcastically, and Ava, smiling sweetly, returned an identical chuckle. Ugh. Ugh. Man. And poor Natsuki, like, just apologized for speaking out of, like, I don't know, it's so awkward.
来年までお元気かという質問ですが、
Everyone's just putting on airs.
医者の私としてはとても難しい。この小康状態がまだしばらくは続くようにも思いますし、何らかの発作が来ればその時にはどうしようもないかもしれません。何しろ六軒島は孤島です。すぐに救急車が飛んでこれるわけではありません。
It's true.
今度のしかるべき大病院に入院していただきたいところなのです
Yeah,
が。
no way he's having that.
親父殿は高尚な研究を中断されたくないと
Whatever his research
去
is.
年無理に連れ出そうとしたのがあだになったらしい。外へ出れば病院に閉じ込められてしまうのではないかとひどくお疑いになられていてな。すっかりこのざまなのだよ。
Mm.
南條先生の診察は受けておられるの？
親父殿は南條先生には心を許しておられる。機嫌が良ければ診察も受けられるようだがね。
容体を見はするが、薬を勧めようとも入院を勧めようとも聞き入れて本当に見るだけですがな。お医者嫌いの方もおるもんや。しかし困ったもんだのう。
Yeah, Nanjo sighed deeply. The purpose of an examination is to determine what medical treatment would be appropriate. Receiving an examination and then not following the advice given makes the whole thing pointless.
つまりおさらいすると、相変わらず余命は3ヶ月。
I mean, so then the point of even having Dr. Nanjo there is just to give his family updates. Like, as far further than that, there's not really a point for him even being there.
禁止のまま、あとどれだけ流らえるか見当もつかねえってことだ。
ルドルフさん、言葉を少し慎まれてはいかがですか？
ああ、すまんね。昔からこういう口の聞き方なんだ。
This whole conversation is just Natsuki, like, begging with the family to stop talking about Grandpa like they're just waiting for him to
勘
die.
弁してくれ。
She seems to be the only one. Well, okay, Rosa doesn't really butt in, saying stop talking about Kinzo that way, but it almost seems like Natsuhi has the most respect for Kinzo. Or cares for his well-being enough. That fucking change in expression. He's just got like the dirtiest fucking expressions.
実を言うと、南條先生とは異なる意見で、とても余命3ヶ月の重病人とは思えないというのが本心だ。怒鳴り声は相変わらず健在で、いつぶん殴られるかとヒヤヒヤしっぱなしだよ。長男にだけ親父の世話を押し付けるのは実にフェアではないね。
来世では俺より後に生まれろよ。さて、話を戻そうぜ。そんなわけで、公正中立なお医者の先生の見解じゃ、いつお隠れになっちまってもおかしくない状態だ。兄貴には悪いが、ここは専門家の意見を採用させてもらうぜ。となりゃ、
Yeah, you can't. I mean, Krauss isn't like any sort of expert. You can't just say, well, he screams at me, it gives me a chill, so he must be healthy. I mean, sure. Alright. That totally is what we should go on as far as his health is concerned. The assets. Several 10 billion. So several hundreds of million of dollars if we're going to convert. Several hundreds of millions of dollars in funds. It's quite a bit to divvy up.
お誕生会のケーキみたいに綺麗にナイフが入ってカットできるほど単純じゃないでしょ?
A lot of investments and assets and
そうさ。ケーキの上にはイチゴやらチョコの家やらが乗ってて、綺麗に等分するのが難しいことだってあるだろう。それを加味してどういう風にナイフを入れるのか先に相談しておくのは大切なことだと思うぜ。
それを当主様が存命のうちからさも他界なされたかのように声高に議論される皆さんの
That's all Natsui's had to say. Like, this whole conversation is just one after another just getting upset at people talking about this.
あら、必要な話よ。だって遺産相続はその時点
And
で
she's not even
直
a
ちに行われなきゃならない。
blood-related daughter. She's just a daughter-in-law.
ましてや栄光ある後宮家の財産は莫大。事前に入念な相談が必要なことはお分かりでしょうが、当家の資産はあなたのご実家とは大違いなんだから。
I don't think Natsuhi's get. Oh, that face. Natsuhi's got. I swear, Natsuhi and Kraus, husband and wife, have like completely opposite expressions. Kraus never breaks his smug little smile, and Natsuhi just looks distraught with every single one of her sprite's facial expressions. Natsuhi responded indignantly, though in a low voice, and the already dark atmosphere grew even more hostile. He keeps trying to, calm everyone down, Hideyoshi, but Hideyoshi tried to smooth things over by glancing at both with a forced smile, but it only resulted in making the hostility between Eva and Natsuhi even more intense. This is another weird angle to have a sprite in, kind of like the bed from a couple hours ago. Like, we're clearly looking up at the ceiling, but we're seeing like a sprite normally. Well, I guess maybe here, if you were sitting on a chair, then it might be a bit more understandable. So maybe it's from the perspective of everyone sitting down. That's why they would. Maybe. Yeah, Nanjo's dipping. He's like, I don't want to be fucking around these people. I am out. Nanjo rose from his seat and exited the parlor. To an outsider, it may have seemed like a normal act of courtesy, but his back was watched by several glances envious of his ability to escape. Yeah. After the doctor had exited and his footsteps had disappeared into the distance, Cross recrossed his legs.
つまりお前たちの言い分はこうかね。親父殿の余命は短い。遺産分配について早急かつ具体的な協議に入りたい。何を焦っているのかね。
Do they get to decide? What if he doesn't leave them the money? What if he's like, I give Beatrice all my money, none to my children? Like, what about his will?
確かにお前たちの言う通り、後宮家の財産を算定し分配するのは簡単なことではないだろう。なれば、じっくりと算定すべきじゃないのかね。お前たちは今晩のうちにもケーキを切り分けたいと焦っているように見える。そうだろう？どうぞ。
He almost seems like he's on Natsuhi's side here.
何を焦ることがあるのか。
You taking your wife's side here?
焦ってるわけじゃない。でも兄弟の間での取り決めは必要。それはいつでもいいことだけれども、お父様の具合が悪くなっていて、その日が先に話だけしておいても、それは請求とは言わないと思うし。
Brosa shot a glance at Eva and Rudolph. As the youngest sibling in the family, it was hard for her to be cross-examined by the eldest.
それはお前の本心か。兄弟で一番素直で綺麗な心を持っていたお前がそんなことを言い出すとは思う。そこの二人に吹き込まれたんじゃないのか。
Really? Did they? Is that why she looked at Eva and Rudolph? You know, Rudolph looks a lot different when he's looking directly at the camera. When he's got his sprite like that versus his usual thing where his head's kind of turned. He looks a lot older, even. And his nose is thinner than I thought it would be.
親父の遺産に公平な権利がある。関心を持つのは当然じゃねえか。親父だっていつかは必ず死ぬし、それは遠い未来の話でもない。むしろ兄貴が悠長すぎるくらいさ。まるで遺産分配から話をそらしたくて仕方がないように見えるぜ。
それはどういう意味ですか？主人にやましいところがあるとおっしゃいたいのですか？
まあ夏日さん、話は聞いておくなあれ。
兄さん、今は大変強気だそうじゃない？そうよね。去年以降空前の好景気で円は上がる一方、ドルが100円に至るのだって夢物語じゃなさそうよ。それに与党は来年頃に保養地整備法を成立させようっていうじゃない。今や日本中のリゾート開発会社がどれだけ軍資金を集められるかって奔走してるところよ。
詳しいじゃないか。これから日本には空前の好景気が訪れる。親父殿が後ろ宮家を再興した時と同じくらいの大規模な需要拡大の時代がね。
Interesting.
日本国民は死に物狂いで働き、高度経済成長を実現して世界で一番豊かな国民となる。国民の消費は増大し、それを回収できる施設があぶく銭を手にする時代になったのだよ。今や国民のニーズは3種の電化製品ではない。スキー場、ゴルフ場、総合プール。
Is this what he's, Delsnyland. Wonderful.
素晴らしい遊園地じゃないか。あそこでは大人も童心に帰り、家族で楽しむことができるんだ。
You sound like you're giving an advertisement.
かつて家族を顧みずに滅私奉公することだけが美徳だった時代はもはや終わろうとしている。
He's gonna get everyone else to buy timeshare at the end of the scene.
我々は世界で一番豊かな国民として、ようやくそれを享受できるようになったのだよ。
クラウス兄さんの読みは大したもんや。
I mean, Kinzo had some foresight. I don't think Krause is on that level.
わしも数年前に聞いたときはそんなアホなと思ったわ。
But Kinzo says that Krause has just been losing money. What do you say? He was trading in 2 coins to earn 1 and calling it profit, right?
でもな、G5 のプラザ合意聞いてから変わったんや。円はみるみる強くなり、地価はこれから天井知らずに上がるやろ。日本が世界経済の中心になる日も遠くはない。兄さんは時代を見る目のあるお人や。それだけは間違いないで。
秀吉兄さんに同じだ。兄貴は10年越しで時代を読めてるよ。その嗅覚は親父譲りだろうな。大したもんだぜ。だが親父と違ってちょいと見通しのタイミングを読み違っちまったところはあるよね。
兄さんは必ず日本が好景気を迎えると信じてあちこちにリゾート計画を起こし、その兄さんの読み通りの時代は確かに訪れつつあるけど、その時期を読むことには失敗したわね。早すぎたのよ。そして焦って清算して結局は傷口を広げたわ。本当に嗅覚が当てになって好景気が訪れることを読めていたなら清算するわけない。これって兄さんが自分で自分の才能を信じてない証拠じゃないの？
失礼な。主人を侮辱するつもりですか
Natsuhi's forehead creased as she rose from the sofa. Eva, paying this no heed, stared at Krause with a confident smile. Krause, who also maintained his confident appearance, told Natsuhi to sit down.
よさないか夏日。昔からこういう言い方しかできないやつだ。少し落ち着きなさい。また頭痛に触る。
兄さんに才能がない証拠は私だって兄さんこの島をリゾート化するって張り切ってたじゃない。
Really? Into a
素
resort?
敵なリゾートホテルも建てて庭園もきれいに整備して。
Oh, the guest house was supposed to be a resort hotel?
私は素人だから分かりかねるけど相当のお金を使ったんでしょう。
だから何だというのですか。主人の事業はあなたとは関係ありません。
いいや、そいつは違うぜ、夏日さん。六軒島は兄貴のものじゃない。親父のものだ。もちろん建てたホテルは兄貴のものだぜ。なんなら、俺たちは今夜の宿泊料を払ってやってもいいさ。
それはまあ持ち合わせで足りるなら。
リゾート化できればこの島の資産価値は上がる。支出がかさんだことは事実だが、未来に大きな収穫を期待で、そうなれば結果的にお前たちにとっても有益なはずじゃないか。
それはわかるわよ。この島の価値が上がればそれを遺産分配する時の私たちの取り分も増えるもの。もちろん島や屋敷を4分の1ずつ切り取れとは言わないわ。それを算定したお金で解決してくれればいいだけの話よ。
そこまで分かっているなら私の事業に何の不満があるんだね。
不満じゃねえ
Well,
さ。
Krause has a sprite that isn't a smug smile.
第一兄貴、あのホテル いつになったら開業するんだ。このままじゃ俺たちの手垢だらけになっちまうぜ。
そうよ、大切な商売道具でしょ。確かに開業するまでずっと鍵をかけておくわけにもいかないわよね。少しは使って風通しを良くしないと建物は傷んじゃうもの。でも私たちが年に一度泊まるだけのゲストハウスって言うんじゃ
very true.
ちょねえローザ
Ava and Rudolph are just like egging on Rosa, like they just want it to be a 3-on-1 as far as the siblings go. And Hideyoshi's definitely on Ava and Rudolph's side as well here, kind of backing Kraus into a corner, which I think is why Natsuhi is just not standing for it.
そうね。あんなに素敵ならオープンしたらさぞや人気が出るでしょうね。
ああ、あなたが前に言ってたホテルってゲストハウスのことだったのね。
立派なもんだろ。ローザの言う通り、オープンできたら人気が出るだろうよ。
The lodging they had been guided to wasn't originally intended to serve as a guest house. It was originally constructed as a resort hotel. However, even though it was built 2 years previously, there was still absolutely no prospect of it opening.
兄さんのいつもの事業と同じよ。着目や企画はご立派。そしていつも途中で立ち行かなくなって何も回収できずに終わる。
この島をただ住むだけにしか使わないのはもったいないって。そしてリゾート化してマリンスポーツやらフィッシングやらハネムーンやらを誘致して盛り上げようってのはなかなかいい絵だったと思うぜ。俺だって長男だったなら。
I mean, yeah, if you own a private island, it's definitely something you probably make a few bucks off of.
でももう出来上がってから2年も経つのよ。2年経って未だに開業のめどはつかないの？任せてる管理会社はどこ？
失敬な。それは主人の手落ちではありません。主人の仕事を受けよう会社間でトラブルが生じているだけで、うちはあくまでも被害者です。
Oh.
しかしな、クラウス兄さんが任せてる例のとこ、あまり噂は聞かんで。
はっきり言ってあげなさいよ。不払い横領トラブルで計画が空中分解しちゃったって話、私たちの耳に届かないとでも思ってる？裏も取れてるんだから。
何の裏だか存じませんが、事実無根です。観光業への新規参入には方々への根回しが必要になります。相手が信用に足りるかを測ることも大事です。それに手間取っているだけに過ぎません。
ホテルの完成が早すぎて勇み足になったことは認めよう。だが維持費がかかってるわけじゃない。やがて大きな意味を持つ布石だ。
It's true.
嘘つけよ。生産したくても売れないだけだろ。観光ルートの確立してない何もない離島にやたら豪華なホテルなんて買い手がつくわけもねえさ。それに事業に集めた融資はどうなってんだよ。
維持費はかからんでも回線借金は膨らむ一方や。すまんがクラウス兄さん、この島の開発計画の話ちょいと調べさせてもろたんや。正直こっちもええ話は聞かへんのや。
Hideyoshi knows a lot more about this
確
than
か
I
に
thought
今
he
の
would.
財政状況だけを見たらそういう印象を持たれるかもしれない。
Seems like Kairi-san's the only one asking to just, or being asked to just stay out of it, like she's doesn't really have the knowledge to participate.
だが これは先行投資なのだよ。その読みを誤り、これまでに多くの負債を生んでしまったことは認めざるを得ない。だが、ようやく時代が私に追いついた。
Yeah, well, words are easy, man, but
これまでの投資だってやがては私のもとに戻ってくる。そう例えるなら、放った稚魚が鮭となり、肥えて帰ってくるようにね。
それは認めるで。これからリゾート業界は空前の好景気を迎え、これまでの負債を埋められるほどかはわからんが。だがな、クラウス兄さん、これまで散々負け続けた兄さんがどこから軍資金を調達したっていうんや。それも半端ない軍資金や。あれだけの穴を埋められる軍資金やで。
秀吉さんは何をおっしゃいたいのですか？
ああ、夏樹さん、ほんま怒らんといてえな。わしらも調べたんや。これまで負け戦続きのクラウス兄さんに最近の強気な莫大投資を支えられるほどの融資を誰ができたんか調べたんや。
結果、いねえんだよ。弱り目と逆に張るのが
yeah,
ル
okay.
ーレットの鉄則だ。
The point of this conversation is finally coming back to me. I'd kind of forgotten where it was all leading to for a moment. Or I was just trying to recall where it was leading to.
確かに時代は好景気を迎えようとしているが、これまでの兄貴の失敗等を天秤にかけて、その上で融資に値すると思う連中がいるのかって言ったら誰もいなかったのさ。
ならねってことになるのよ。
Yeah.
ほう。興味深い話じゃないか。そうやで。
あなた、このような暴言をいつまで放置されるつもりですか？
Maybe Natsuki doesn't know about it.
座れよ、夏日さん。担当直入に言おう。兄貴は親父の個人資産を自分の事業に流用してる。
Mm-hmm.
これはほぼ間違い
I
ない。
remember this being insinuated, but
これが俺たちの誤解だってんなら、どうかぜひそれを解いてもらいたいもんさ。
ルドルフ、流用なんてもんじゃないわよ。
ooh.
刑事告発できる立派な犯罪なんだから。
無礼極まりない。仮にも後宮本家跡継ぎの後宮クラウスに向かって信じられない暴言です。
暴言じゃないわよ。図星でしょ。なんとか事業を成功させてこれまでの損失を埋めたいんだけど、その穴は広がっていく一方、博打の穴をさらに大きく張った博打で埋めたいだけよ。その軍資金がすぐ近くにあったなら手をはっきり言うわ。兄さんがしているのは横領よ。お父様に対する裏切りよ。しかるべき決着がつ
I
いた
don't remember what Krauss has to say about
司法に
this.
委ねることになるでしょうね。そんな輩に後宮本家跡継ぎを名乗らせるとお思い？
Ava's ready to take the
言うにこと書いて、当主様への裏切りとは聞き捨てがたい。この栄
Kick
光
the
ある
head.
後宮家の敷居をまたぐ資格はもはやあなたにはありません。即刻ここを出て行きなさい。さあ。
the wind.
ほら。
Oh boy, here it comes, I think. Natsuhi, who had already reached the limits of her anger, shouted at Ava in range. Then she pointed alternately at Ava and the hallway, demanding that she leave. Ava took out a folding fan and fanned herself with it, glaring maliciously at Natsuhi, as though silently daring her to repeat what she'd said. However, her mouth was still smiling, curved in the shape of a crescent moon. In that unpleasant silence, Rosa gulped.
ねえ、夏日姉さん。
Ooh.
誰に向かってそんな口をお聞きなの？
God damn. Waiting for this.
無礼極まりない主人の妹に対してです。これ以上は私も本家の台所を預かる者として聞き捨てなりません。
台所を預かる？
There it is. Fuck. God damn. Oh my god. And like the veins coming out of the side of her head and Jesus. Eva folded the fan with a snap and rose to her feet energetically. Compared to the elegance and playfulness she'd shown until a second ago, she was now unimaginably aggressive.
この後ろ宮エヴァに当主様の左肩を許されている後ろ宮家序列第3位のこのエヴァに下がれと
Yeah, rank 10 is trying to order on rank 3.
身の程を知りなさい。そしてお前のそのみすぼらしい姿を鏡に映してみるがいい。
I don't know how these two are supposed to like interact again after this. Like, this is like a permanent fuck you that like can't be taken back.
お前の服のどこに翼が？
Yeah.
どこに片翼のわしが許されているのか。
Okay, that's what it's called, the one-winged eagle.
貴様など後ろ宮家の跡継ぎを残すためだけの存在じゃないの。身の程をわきまえるがいい。このゲス女が。
Common housemaid. Oh, jeez. Eva's face twisted hideously as her words gouged into Natsuhi's heart like talons wrenching at it. There were 100 ways Natsuhi wanted to respond. However, her anger and sorrow crushed her throat, and none of those words managed to make it to her mouth. Her anger had nowhere to go, and became a single hot tear that slowly dripped down. That smile! That fucking smile! Oh god! So fucking creepy, Ava.
言い返したいならどうぞ言い返しなさいよ。
Jesus.
ほら。
Eva faced her with a provocative gaze. However, Natsuhi could do nothing but tremble, her clenched fists quivering. Kraus quietly broke that powder keg tension. Oh, and he's just gonna ask Natsuhi to leave, isn't he? Oh, God. I feel so bad for Natsuhi.
席を外しなさい。頭を冷やすといい。
And now not even her husband's on her side. She's just absolutely feeling betrayed. Natsuhi, resenting the fact that her husband had not come to her aid, shifted the focus of her attack.
あなたはさっきから何を言われているのか分かってるんですか？
Oh.
この人たちは言うにこと書いてあなたのことをお父様への裏切り者呼ばわりしているんです。私たちが後ろ宮家の栄光を守りお父様からそれを受け継ぐため日々高潔であろうとする全ての努力をないがしろにして踏みにじあなたもあなたです。どうして言い返さないんですか？あなたが言い返さないから私が言い返しているのにさっきからあなたは私に任せっきりで
That's true. Natsuhi's been the one constantly having to
その私に頭を冷やして
interlude
こい
here
なん
and
て言うんですか？
not intervene and say, you know, the hell's wrong with you guys?
いつも私ばかり
I don't necessarily think it's wrong to talk about splitting up Kinzo's fortune, but Natsuhi has a point as well. And no one in the room is on her side right now.
私はいつも真剣にこの家のことを考えているのにそれは
Natsuhi was already unable to hide her tears. She flew from the room in that state. Damn, that's just upsetting. That's an upsetting scene. I don't know. Ugh. After that, all that remained was somewhat embarrassed mood about the parlor. When the sound of footsteps grew distant and silence returned, Kraus shrugged his shoulders slightly.
妻が失礼した。
God damn.
昔から感情を抑えるのが下手でね。私も苦労している。
あんなのに切り盛りされてたんじゃ。兄さんも気苦労が絶えないわね。
Shut up. Nah, yeah.
奥様。
何でもありません。下がりなさい。
Natsuhi flew into her room and threw herself onto her bed, lamenting. Those heart-wrenching sobs reached Kumasawa in the hallway.
おいたわしや奥様。奥様とエヴァ様は犬猿の中。
You think, yeah.
このお二人の関係を説明するのは、女の私にはとてもしんどくございます。後ろ宮家は血を特に重んじられますが、嫁いで家を出れば、本来は序列から除籍されます。ですから、エヴァ様も本来は秀吉様とのご成婚の際に。
Interesting. I did not remember that.
ところが、これは誰のせいでもありません。ましてや、奥様のせいであろうはずもありません。神様の気まぐれとしか言いようがありません。
Although Kumasawa just always... She's always just alone, just giving us exposition by herself, like explaining the circumstances of people like she's a storyteller or something. Huh. It's interesting, actually, when I put it that way. Like... Who's she talking to? And she knows everyone's circumstances so well, but... I guess that...
クラウス様と夏日様にはなかなか子宝が授からなかったのです。
I don't know. Just started thinking weird, baseless things about Kumasawa for some reason. I just know there's gonna be mystery and reveals in this game, and every time like something a little fishy comes up, I'm like, could that mean something? Just with absolutely nothing to go on.
何しろ男尊女卑の後ろ宮家でございます。妻は跡継ぎを残すためのと思う。その妻が唯一の役割を果たせないのなら、当時の奥様が親方様からどれほど責め苛まれていたか思い出すのも苦しゅうございます。
Really?
そんな中、エヴァ様に秀吉様とのご結婚の話が持ち上がりました。エヴァ様は狡猾でした。奥様がいつまでも身ごもられないことにつけ入って親入り婿を取って自分が跡継ぎを産むと吹き込み、ご自分の席を後ろ宮家にとどまらせるよう認めさせた。後ろ宮家に嫁ぎ外様扱いの奥様と
That really complicates the hierarchy.
血族として残ったエヴァ様は後ろ宮家の序列の中では雲泥の
Because you have the oldest son giving birth to a daughter, the oldest daughter giving birth to a son. The oldest son couldn't have children for a while.
しかもエヴァ様は先にそれも男児をご出産されております。
And yeah, George is older than Jessica.
当 どれほど奥様の立場がエヴァ様の前で弱いものであったか。奥様にとっては、もし自分がすぐに解任することができれば、エヴァ様の入り婿など親方様に認めさせずに済み、今日のエヴァ様の増長を許さずに済んだだろうという悔しい気持ちがあるに違いありません。しかし、それは奥様のせいであろうはずもない。
Circumstances aren't necessarily super complicated, but they are troubling. They're not great.
すべては気まぐれな神様とジェシカさんをお届けすることが遅れたコウノトリのせいなのでございます。だからといって奥様にはそうと割り切れるはずもない。ただただ妻としての責務を全うできなかったことに、女として悔し涙をこぼすしかできないでしょう。
Yeah.
老いたわしが私には何もできず、こうして物陰から見守ることしかできないのです。
Okay. Alright, that is as far as I have gotten in Umineko. This was my own personal little catch-up, refresher playthrough of what I had played months ago. And so everything after this point is going to be blind. Will be new content for me 100%. I'll kind of go over some theories or I don't even know if they'll be theories, but just things of note at the start of next episode that I want to keep track of and keep in my mind. You know, various things that have been talked about or mentioned that I think have a possibility of becoming quite important later. Just so I have a sort of mental list. I will make that at the start of next episode, kind of go over a lot of things that were talked about up so far to this point, now that I've read it 2 times. I do have a lot of things that I'm thinking about, and you know, I don't have much to go on as far as like what they could possibly mean, a lot of things that were in this, but still there was enough focus put on a lot of things that you think it's probably going to come up in some sort of fashion later. Probably could be important in the future. Just things I really want to keep in my mind. Alright, well, thanks for sticking around if you're still here. I know this actually took me a lot more hours than I had originally thought of, because I was like, oh, it took me, 2 or 3 hours to read up to this point before. Then I hadn't considered when you're actually like doing a let's play, it extends the time by like more than double. But no, it's fine, it's fun. I'm gonna keep going with this, and we'll see what happens. Alright, thank you, and I'll see you next time.